What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Mikey McNuggets, Earl the Pearl, G. Bush coming at you on a UCSS Bleacher Report crossover stream. And guys, we did a post-game show yesterday, and we dissected the 35-14 blowout the Browns suffered at the hands of the Saints. And we talked at a little length, but not nearly enough, of the future of the decision makers for the Cleveland Browns. So now with 24 hours to digest what happened on the field yesterday and over the course of the first 10 games of the season, Earl, in your mind, do the Cleveland Browns have to clean house, fire Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Berry, and whoever else you want to include in that sentiment, and start fresh? Or can they pick and choose to keep a few of these guys and rebuild it from the ground up?
I'm never really comfortable wishing unemployment on another person. But if I'm being totally honest with myself, yes. I think the Cleveland Browns need to clean house from top to bottom. I think heads need to roll. I think it needs to start with Paul DePodesta all the way down to Kevin Stefanski. The reality of the situation is he's been chief strategy officer since 2016, him being Paul DePodesta. And to this point, nobody really knows what he does. And when Andrew Berry was asked straight up, what's his job title, he hesitated to answer the question. That kind of let me know that Paul is his boss. And to me, it gave me the same vibes of when Joe Banner was the CEO of football operations and Mike Lombardi was the general manager. The Cleveland Browns got too many cooks in the kitchen. And the reality is, more often than not, the meal comes out tasting like trash. I like Kevin Stefanski. I think Kevin Stefanski is a good coach. And yeah, he has 2 Coach of the Year awards. And yeah, if he loses his job, there will be other teams lining up to hire him. But you know what? So what? Sometimes you run your course with an organization. What I seen from Kevin Stefanski in that post-game news conference after the loss yesterday to the Saints, it seemed like a coach that had checked out, right? Earlier in that game, it looked like his players had quit and checked out on the field. And then in the post-game news conference, it looked like the coach had checked out. He just looked at like really dejected. He looked like he didn't really give a damn. And when you constantly don't show emotion and it seems like he just don't have the sense of the temperature of what's going on right now or whatever the case may be. But I think it's time to start fresh because the reality of the matter is, for everybody who wants to fire Andrew Berry, and rightfully so, if Andrew Berry is fired, then the next general manager of this team should be allowed to pick the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns if Kevin Stefanski is not his choice. The Browns got some real issues. And true story, everybody in the front office all the way down to the coaching staff has not shown to be consistent. Real quick, per Pro Football Reference, we talk a lot about Kevin Stefanski's record, but the reality is 39-38. G said it yesterday. We got 1 playoff win, and he was at home in his basement recovering from COVID at said time. So I think the Cleveland Browns need to clean house. Heads need to roll from Paul DePodesta all the way down to the last coach on Kevin Stefanski's staff.
G. Bush, what say you?
All right, so you hear a lot of this, right? And you hear a lot of what's the owner. Well, listen, I don't know if you guys don't understand something, but the owner's not giving up the ownership. It's a golden ticket. It's one of the most prestigious positions in the entire world. There are one of 32 owners in the entire world. These places print money. These guys get tax breaks. People work there. This is somebody's legacy. This is their lineage. So I think we sound dumb after a while saying it's the owner. Listen, I don't know what do you guys want to do. He's not selling the team. He's gonna keep whatever he has, and you're gonna have to move past that. Either you're gonna root for the Browns, or you're not going to root for the Browns. But the ownership is not changing hands. If he don't have it, his son will have it. If his son don't have it, his grandchildren will have it. They are not selling that team. So what we need to do is stop doing this cop-out thing and saying it's the ownership until the owner leaves. Well, he's not leaving. So let's talk about what you can change. You can change your GM. You can change your coach. You can change your philosophy. Now, when it comes to Kevin Stefanski, 39-38, I understand that we have a situation where people feel like this is the best coach we've had in a long time. But keep going to the Cavs situation. The Cavs won 50 games 3 years in a row. They won playoff games. And they got rid of their head coach because they felt like it was not the right move to make to get to the next level. When you look at the games on the field, this is what evaluation is about. You are what you put on tape. And so Kevin Stefanski say, I was dealt a raw deal, and Deshaun Watson muddied the whole thing, and we had injuries. That has nothing to do with your special teams and Bubba Ventrone. That has nothing to do with why you told me it was a quarterback issue. Your quarterback threw for 400 yards yesterday. He threw for 402 touchdowns. You won the turnover battle. It's not just one thing. It's a multitude of things. It's you didn't choose and develop players right. You didn't have your special teams together. You gave a contract to a kicker. It's some weeks it's the penalties, some weeks it's not the penalties. And last week it was the team that came out there and let a gadget player beat you by himself, a gadget player, and you had 2 weeks. Think about it. 2 weeks you had to game plan for what they do. And they have an interim head coach. And instead of our team looking like the team that was showing the warts and the miscomings and the shortcomings of what the Saints were, we came out there and we looked like we were completely unprepared to stop a random quarterback option. With that being said, it was a long-winded answer, but their record is what their record is. If they continue to play the way they are, if it was me, I would move on from them. They'll have their opportunity the right to ship. But listen, 2-8 against some of the worst teams in the league, it is who you are at this point.
Yeah, I said on the post-game show yesterday that despite my level-headedness in a lot of these situations, I just think it's reached a point of no return. And I look across the board. I don't think Kevin Stefanski is going to do a good job coaching this team as a whole this season. I think Ken Dorsey and whatever they've done to the offense has taken a major step back from where they were last year. The Browns had the number 1 defense in football last season. It looked like an elementary school, junior varsity level defense against the Saints, and watching Taysom Hill slice and dice them like a cheese grater through soft butter was like one of those crazy videos you see on Twitter where you're watching 6th grade football, but there's a 6'2", 225-pound kid that no one could tackle. I'm not sure if I'm willing to say the players quit yesterday, but there are ways to quit without quitting, G, and you know that better than anyone. When you see guys consistently trying to make arm tackles instead of putting a shoulder pad into a guy's into his thigh and try to take him down. The Browns were making and attempting and missing, so making's not even the right word. We're trying to arm tackle everybody, and you saw Taysom Hill ran through about, I don't know, he had 7 carries yesterday. I would say 27 different arm tackles en route to 138 yards and 3 touchdowns. The top of the organization starts with Andrew Berry. As high as you can get, because you're not touching Jimmy Haslam. Gee, you're right. He's not going to sell it. He's building a new stadium. Organizations and sports teams print money. When you are as rich as Jimmy Haslam or any of these owners, there are only so many things that can make you kind of feel fulfilled, and owning a sports team and winning is one of them. So he's not selling. Just it sucks, but it is what it is. So from Andrew Berry on down, I don't think anyone's done a even satisfactory job from a coaching and/or developmental standpoint this season. And when you see players kind of check out, and Earl, I agree with your assessment, Kevin Stefanski at his post-game press conference just seemed dejected. At this point, I think it's time to just cut the head off the snake and buy into that. Like at some point, there's no coming back from the situation that has become the inevitable outcome of the last 5 years and the Deshaun Watson trade and everything else accumulated with the Browns. I really think it's time to just cut bait, start fresh, and pray you get it right. And there's no guarantee you get it right, which is the scary part. But going back to the Baker Mayfield thing, to tie this up, you can have a good quarterback, but good may not be good enough. And Kevin Stefanski may be a good head coach, but he ain't good enough with the current situation in place to take the Browns where they need to get to. It may just be what it is, where you have to cut bait with everybody at once, but I'm not looking across the board, special teams, defense, offense, scouting, management, development. No one's been good enough, so let's try to bring in someone who is.
Earl, I'm gonna ask you this: like, in people ask me, you know, this comment that says, "Hey, who does G. Bush want as head coach?" That happens a lot when you say somebody Brown should move on or somebody should lose their job. The first reaction is to, well, who are you going to put a head coach? That's not the onus on me. The onus is not on me to have all the answers. I'm supposed to tell you he gets fired, but then tell you exactly who you want to put in office or to put on that sideline that's going to make a difference. The reality of the situation is the Browns got lucky because there's a lot of regimes that would have gotten fired after you screwed the Baker Mayfield thing up. So let's not act like this is the first thing. Like, there are multiple things, multiple areas where, and if you're Jimmy Haslam and you can say this and say, look, well, I put it on you guys. Is Baker good enough to give this contract extension to? And for Baker to play like Baker's playing right now, he has a reason to say, well, look, you kind of messed up on that one. We got a reprieve, and we kind of fumbled the bag again on Deshaun Watson. So, like, I don't know, how many of these quarterbacks that you have, faith that they're going to just turn around. But, I mean, this is a big thing. You already whiffed on 2 quarterbacks. Now we got a top 10 pick, and you think that I'm going to put my whole organization in your hands to not only draft the right guy, but develop them too.
I agree with everything you said. I mean, if the fans want a name, just for the sake of throwing a name, me and Mike talked about this. Mike told me I lost my damn mind already, but Ben Johnson, right? You can't help but to look at what he's doing in Detroit and say, man, that's very, very appealing, right? This is an offense that's a juggernaut. They put up 52 points, had 38 first downs, and over 600 yards of total offense yesterday. So if I'm going to name anybody, it's going to be Ben Johnson. But when I look at the Cleveland Browns organization, why would this be an appealing job to him? This is a man that turned down opportunities to move on last year from Detroit and become a head coach. And he stated, he's not leaving Detroit unless it's the absolute right situation. And when I look at the Browns right now, I can't look at our organization and say that we are the most attractive job on the market, right? Because I go back to that Paul DePodesta factor, right? Nobody knows what he does. But if you listen to the rumors and the rumblings over his tenure, Mike, rumor has it John Dorsey was fired because him and Paul DePodesta did not get along. And John Dorsey put together a pretty doggone good football team here, right? And so to me, I think that when you have a guy like that in place as a buffer, he's a toxic buffer, and it's having a trickle-down effect to everything else. And again, go back to the Joe Banner thing, right? With Mike Lombardi. You get Joe Banner here, and I remember when the Cleveland Browns fired the coach and they was going on this coaching search. It took the Browns like 25 days to find a coach. And Jimmy Haslam, I don't know if a light bulb went off, but he realized, okay, maybe people are not taking this job because of Joe Banner, because of his reputation. But you look at Paul DePodesta's resume, and everything from 96 up into 2016 is tied to Major League Baseball, right? And this is the man that you have as a buffer between you and football people, right? It's almost like, man, the Cleveland Browns, we get on jet wheels about business decisions, but the Browns are making business decisions. They're not worried about football decisions. And that's what they come off like. And I'm not saying that Jimmy is not trying to win. Jimmy spends the money. Jimmy is going to do whatever he can, right? The dude is thirsty to be a contender, to be in that upper echelon as an owner who's won a Super Bowl, But when you look at what's going on throughout the organization, I just think that he continuously poorly structures this organization from top to bottom, and the fans, and it's the poor beneficiary of that, unfortunately.
Yeah, when Earl said I shot him down on the Ben Johnson thing, it's not because I don't think Ben Johnson can make a terrific head coach. The dude's an offensive savant. But to Earl's point, he turned down jobs last season that were willing to pay a ton of money because he said, I'm only going to the perfect situation, because you may only get one shot to be a head coach. And I'm not sure how a first-time head coach would feel about coming to a team that is paying a lot of money to a quarterback who won't be back to start next season. You have no idea what the situation is going to be. So that was my one hesitation on Ben Johnson. I don't think it's a coincidence, guys, that Mike Vrabel all of a sudden is having some game day on the field duties with the Browns, especially at road games when, for the record, and I know this for a fact, he had not been on the sideline for any road game prior to yesterday. I don't think that's a coincidence. Now, Mike Vrabel, just like Ben Johnson, will be an extremely hot commodity on the open market for head coaches this summer. He's already been linked to the Raiders. And by the way, one of his best friends, Tom Brady, is a part-time owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. And Mark Davis hasn't been a terrific owner, but he's shown the propensity, just like Jimmy, to spend to get a guy he wants in as head coach. And they just re-signed Antonio Pierce as the head coach after being the interim last year? Would they be willing to make a change now that Tom Brady has a say in the organization? Maybe. I saw a report that said Mike Vrabel is the Saints' preferred choice to be the head coach if they don't sign Darren Rizzi. Ohio State could be in the market for Mike Vrabel. Gee, I don't know if you get the same sense, but I feel like the Browns are almost unveiling the curtains and opening up all the shades to Mike Vrabel to say, here's what could be yours if you want it. And you're going to get a first-row, first-hand view at what this situation is. So when the situation does arise that we're going to make you an offer, you know exactly what you're getting into. Because if that's not the case, I don't know why he's on the sideline right now.
So listen, it just makes too much sense. Like, you know, when you're doing a negotiation, right, very rarely do you get an inside view of what the problem is. Because, by the way, when there's a vacancy, that means somebody didn't perform. Yep. So if they was balling, there wouldn't be vacancies in business. So think about it like this. He's been there as a fly on the wall or a consultant. He knows the team. He knows the personnel. He knows Jim Schwartz. And most importantly, he can go to Jimmy Haslam and say, this is X, Y, and Z I feel that we performed away, and this is the problem because I was there. It's very rare that you have that opportunity. Number two, you always strike when the iron is hot. He has all the leverage. He's already been there. He can give you an answer in a 5-point project to tell you exactly what it is. The players are already used to him. They already have seen him on the field. He has relationships with all of them. So it just makes sense that he's the guy next in line to get the job. Now, Mike Vrabel needs to do one thing very well, and that's something I never thought Kevin Stefanski had the opportunity to do because he was a first-time head coach. You knew all you needed to know when it took Jimmy Haslam that long to give him an extension after the season he had. The writing was already on the wall. Like you lock a guy up after the season, like, oh, listen, we got to get you together. Never really happened. We tried to get the details of it, never really came out. Not only that, he made you get rid of most of your staff. After a year, you went to the playoffs. I think Mike Vrabel starts off at a different position and a different point because he's already had a track record. They know he already got an offer. He might have an offer at Ohio State and he can get one anywhere else. He's been in the building. And when he gets that offer, he's going to tell Jimmy Haslam, and if he's smart, he would do it. It's my show. I need it in writing. I control X, Y, Z in writing. That's how it's moving. And the first thing that needs to go is I know all I need to know about football. And that dude over there, the baseball guy that never won with the A's, he can hang out with you, not me.
So remember when, Kevin Stefanski pretty much said, he was the front runner on bringing Mike Vrabel into the organization, that he made this hire. And then I think Mike Vrabel, he's present during the week, he's on the road, or he's at home for home games on the road, whatever. And to your point, Mike, like when that man popped up on the sideline on a road game, and then you couple that with the fact that Kevin Stefanski looked and sounded the way he did during that post-game interview, it's almost like, man, who my replacement is almost here scouting while I'm here in the building. You know what I mean? And for Mike Vrabel, I think he needs to do his due diligence and be careful before he takes this job or any other job, because this is his second go round as head coach. And you look at his coaching record, 54-45 in Tennessee. His second year there, 2019, they played 3 playoff games. They go 2-1. His last 2 years, they were 7-10, 6-11, no playoff appearances. And so it's when I look at that, my question to Mike Vrabel would be, what would you do differently? What have you learned from Tennessee and to now? But again, I guess for me, I know a lot of the emphasis is on Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, but I don't really feel confident about nothing within the Browns organization as long as Paul DePodesta is tied to this organization. Because we might look at Mike Vrabel as a good football coach, a good football mind, a guy that can get the most out of the players available. But if he got to answer to Paul DePodesta like everybody else, exactly how much is he going to be able to put his touch, his imprint on this Cleveland Browns team going forward? And so I think it's more questions still to be asked.
And Earl, to that exact point, do you know why Vrabel and Tennessee went their different ways? The owner of Tennessee brought in a new GM And Vrabel's like, I don't want to listen to that person. I want to have my own say in football decisions. And the owner chose the new GM, Ron Carthen, over Mike Vrabel. And then Mike Vrabel was like, okay, this ain't going to work. This is not how I want my football organization to be run. So he went this way. The Titans have gone this way. If he wasn't want to listen to a new guy brought in, I'm just not 100% sure he's going to want to listen to Paul DePodesta or whoever's ahead of him that's already in place, knowing what has happened this season. And Vrabel's going to be like, this is what you guys did, not me, you. And now you want me to buy into that? Like, not going to happen. It's too early to know exactly who the hottest coaching candidates on the market would be. I don't think there's any scenario where Stefanski, if he was going to get fired this week, it would have happened already. He's going to coach against the Steelers. They play on Thursday night, and then there's a mini bye after that. If they get smoked by the Steelers on what's supposed to be a disgusting 37-degree, wet, rainy, sloppy game in Cleveland, then on Friday morning, we could be having a very different discussion. But
there's a couple of other things that I think you're starting to see too. You started to see inexplicably Nick Chubb's carries taper down. You're like, wow, he's balling out. He chilling. Myles Garrett was like, I ain't gonna say he made a business decision, but he was kind of quiet. I'm telling you like this. This is a winding down. There may be a situation where you go into certain players and say, hey, listen, hey, big fella, hey, Nick, we seen what you got. We're going to bring you back. Let's start negotiating and work on something. Miles, if you need any treatment, any surgeries, go ahead and get him. We're going to figure something out. And then two, my thought process along this lines is, if the Browns are not going to be in a position to get a top flight quarterback, somebody's going to need to make a decision on Jameis Winston. They're going to have to make a decision on something, because here's the thing. What quarterback are you coming with? I think they need to be working on this in real time. And by the way, if you're going to make decisions, you got to make decisions based on the cap, based on Deshaun Watson coming back next year, based on all of that. So you got to have fresh eyes on all of this stuff right now if you're going to make a move. You can't bring nobody into the building and you got a top 10 pick and you don't know who you're going to identify and you don't know what quarterback's going to be. So I think some of this stuff is going on behind closed doors to say, all right, well, what's the contingency plan if this happens?
Earl,
That's a good point.
3 minutes. Give us your kind of final thought. Is there any salvaging this, or is this just a lost cause? We'll go around the horn on that, then we'll say goodbye to our audience for tuning in today.
Unfortunately, man, I don't think it's any salvage in this situation at all. I think the writing is on the wall. We've had, 4.5 years to assess this situation. And when you look at the totality of everything from Andrew Berry to Kevin Stefanski, you can't walk away satisfied, right? It's almost like emotions. It's been up and down like a roller coaster. You know, you have a good season and you can't even follow that up when you have realistic expectations behind you. And that's been the case every single year of the tenure of Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. I think the Cleveland Browns need a clean house, and I think they need to start fresh. And the reality of the situation is, I don't think because of the parity factor that this is a, blow it up, rebuild, and the Browns are not relevant again for the next 3 or 4 years. The truth of the matter is, man, if you put the right people into place and you sign the right free agents and you draft the right players, then you can call this a retooling and you can speed up the process. There are some talented football players on this roster. There are some guys who probably have not reached their potential because they have not had the, coaching development aspect of things. And so there's some positives to look at, but you have to hire the right people. And for me, when the Browns decide on whatever they're going to decide on at the end of the season or at whatever point, they just better make sure that Paul DePodesta is part of the heads that's going to roll.
We'll wrap with this. G, you said it best yesterday. You mentioned it again on the UCSS flagship show today. If you look at the 5-year autopsy of the current regime, are the Browns in a better place today than they were 5 years ago? The answer, you can answer it yourself, but I think most people would agree on one side or the other. If you like what you saw today, make sure you check us out on YouTube Monday through Friday on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. For everyone on Bleacher Report, we appreciate the hospitality. We'll see you guys on Sunday. We'll see you Friday morning for another post-game wrap-up show report. For Earl, for G, I'm McNuggets, and we'll see you guys later. Peace.
Deuces.